Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Bible in Small Steps. I'm Jill from the North Woods. We've come through 6 seals now. 4 horsemen released one after the other, martyrs crying out from under the altar, a cosmic upheaval that sends every rank of humanity scrambling for cover. And then in chapter 7, we get the answer to the question that chapter 6 left hanging. Who can stand? And now everyone we know, everyone the Lamb has washed, sealed, stamped with his ownership, is gathered from every nation on earth, every language, every people. So we're back now to the seals, and the 7th one is about to be open, and everything loud that has happened so far in the book, trumpet-like voices, thunders, earthquake, 4 horsemen thundering across the earth. What happens now is unsettling. I think it's probably the most unsettling moment in all of Revelation. And not because it's loud, but because it's very quiet. So we have only one verse in this. There's no elaboration. When he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half hour. So what's notably different from this and everything in the book so far is that every seal produced something dramatic, immediate, a horse and rider, an earthquake, a cosmic collapse, stars falling from their place. And this one produces nothing but stillness. In the vision, this relentless, loud things that were happen, and now suddenly everything's still. It's disorienting. And I don't think about it, it's disorienting for us as readers, but think about John in this vision. Wait, what's happening now? I mean, think about you if you've been saying, what is happening now? So commentaries generally read this as a dramatic pause right before the judgment to come, which will be intensified even further. Heaven itself is holding its breath, and it may be echoing this old temple practice where there was a moment of silent awe that was observed before the incense offering was made. And that's what happens in the very next verse, so it kind of makes sense. Habakkuk 2:20 gives us the closest in the Old Testament. The Lord in his temple, let all the earth be silent before him. And like I said, this whole book of Revelation is everything to me that has been staged beforehand. We had plagues before. We had white robes before. We had crowns before. We had trumpets before. We had all these things that were mentioned before. And suddenly everything is being brought back into Revelation and being reused. If you thought it was imagery, it's not imagery. It's actual reality coming now. So here's something worth taking a look at, that about a half hour is an oddly specific time for apocalyptic literature. We've seen so many weird numbers, 7 for completeness, or uncounted multitudes, 12, 7s. There's all sorts of it. The specificity here is the point. It is a real time of sustained silence before anyone hearing anything again. It's not just one scene passing to the other. Something actually happens here. So now the 7 angels are handed 7 trumpets, and the trumpets in the scripture consistently do one thing, or do 3 things, sorry. They call people to worship, they call people to war, or they warn them of coming judgment. And I think the trumpets circling Jericho, right, in Joshua 6, or the trumpet blast announcing the day of the Lord in Joel 2:1. There's nothing here where we're supposed to say it's this thing or that thing. I think it's going to be all 3 things at once. War, worship, and then the coming judgment. And so then another angel appears carrying a golden censer. That's a ER at the end of that, offering incense. And a censer is a bowl that contains incense on it. And you maybe have seen this in Catholic churches where they have it on a chain. It's a very specific one where they swing it back and forth, which helps the aroma cross into the rest of the church. It's what was used very commonly in worship for when there's incense being burned. But in this case, we're offering incense with all the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar in front of the throne. And the smoke of the incense rises up before God together with those very prayers. And we heard someone mentioned it, talked about, the aroma coming lifting up to God. And we've seen that imagery before. So what's happening here is this very tender callback to what we've read throughout this entire book of Revelation. The martyrs under the altar crying out, how long? The answer to that image is right here. Their prayers are never lost. They're pictured here literally rising to God's throne. Then at the same time, the same angel fills the censer with fire from the altar itself and hurls it down onto earth and produces thunder, rumbling, lightning, and an earthquake. And the prayers of the persecuted believers become in this vision part of what is the coming judgment. God is perfect mercy and perfect judgment. And what's striking in this picture is that it's not a passive moment, it's active. There is judgment coming. Something moves here. Something dramatic moves here. Then what we have is hail and fire mixed with blood are hurled down on earth. A third of the earth, 1/3 of the trees, all the green grass is burned up. Things that you count on, that you'd think could never happen. 1/3 of it gone. It's a direct echo to the 7th plague in Egypt, where hail mixed with fire raining down. And then it leads up to, what does it lead up to? The people being relieved from their slavery, the Exodus. Revelation is deliberately showing us that same image. There's destruction and devastation and death, but what happens next? Freedom and release. And this is that frame where the trumpet judgment as a second final Exodus pattern. God's judging the rebellious world in the same way he judged Egypt in order to free his people. And so notice then this reoccurring fraction in the chapter, 1/3. The destruction here is repeatedly partial and not total. So the whole world isn't being destroyed. Severe, genuinely devastating, but limited. It sets apart from the full and final judgment that's ahead yet in the book. But the distinction matters because this is a warning, but not the last word. So then we come into, it said something like a great mountain burning with fire thrown into the sea. And 1/3 of the sea turns to blood. 1/3 of the sea creatures die. And 1/3 of the ships are destroyed. Another exodus of the Nile turning to blood. And now applied to the sea on a partial scale again. And I want to point out, it says something like a mountain, because the language itself, John is trying to tell us in something we could understand what he saw. And he's straining to find, I think, earthly words for something that is entirely apocalyptic. And I feel like, something like the first thought that crossed my mind in it, oh gosh, that is a giant meteor hitting the earth. It looks like a mountain. It is on fire, but we don't know. Things to find out, I guess, someday. And then it says, a great star blazing like a torch falls on 1/3 of the rivers and springs. The star also sounds like a meteor. The star is given a name, Wormwood, and that's absinthos, bitter, toxic plant. In Old Testament, that was mentioned before, is a symbol of bitter judgment, idolatry. In Jeremiah 9:15 and Deuteronomy 29:18, the waters turn bitter, and many of the people die from drinking it. This is where law and gospel is coming back together again. The text doesn't specifically spell it out, but the bitterness poisoning water is very vivid in this, because when we think about poisoning, we think of sin. Sin poisons everything in God's creation, and everything that's meant to sustain life. Everything that was supposed to be good on this planet has been poisoned by sin. This is how important it is. People say, sin happens all the time. It's serious. And the Old Testament has used the word woodworm in this exact way, long before Revelation used it as an image too. But everyone who is Jewish would understand what this means. Then the trumpet 4, 1/3 of the sun, 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars are struck, so that 1/3 of the day and 1/3 of the night go without light. And so this again mirrors the 9th plague of Egypt, where darkness scatters back. It's a cosmic darkening language that we've already seen. The 6th seal mentioned it briefly, but Revelations goes to that. the earth, the sea, the water, the skies, the escalating waves. Instead, it's all marching forward. And like I said, it's increasing. It's like a birth pang, right? We talk about the birth pangs, that the end of the time is going to be like that. And birth pangs start out where there's sharp pain, and then it subsides for a while, and it gets worse, and then it subsides for a little shorter period of time, and it gets worse, and then it sustains for a moment, and then it's just bad until you have a baby, right? So this is what's happening. This is a ramping up. And it's not a single story told across a timeline. It's the same warning and the same activities happening each time in a cycle. Then what we see is that an eagle is flying overhead, and some manuscripts call it an angel instead. But either way, the message is unchanged. It cries out 3 times, "Woe, woe, woe to those who are living on earth," because the remaining trumpet blasts that are the 3 angels are about to sound. And this final verse is formal in its structure. It splits the 7 trumpets into 2. The first 4, which we walked through the striking down creation itself, at least a third of it, and then the last 3, which now tells us plainly things are going to be about to get much worse. This is not because of its building up suspense. That's the eagle telling this audience, telling us all directly that the worst is about to come. And so John's first century readers would have read all of this and felt like everything in created order itself is starting to buckle. The whole chapter needed to communicate one thing clearly: your prayers matter. Your suffering is seen. This partial judgment itself is a form of mercy. Space is being given to people who are still here on this planet to give them a chance to repent, to walk back, to declare Jesus as their God, to be his. And this is what it holds up to. We're tempted, I think, to read judgment passages with a feeling of dread. It was funny because this is coming out today. When I went to church this morning, there was a picture and it showed this very scary scene, and it says, "You are about to be judged." And then the next scene was cartoon daisies and flowers, and it says, "You are about to be judged." And it says, "There's no washing it. When you say that you're going to be judged, it never looks great. It never feels good. It gives us a sense of dread, no matter what you say about it." But that's essentially it. It's remembering that a third of everything is being struck, but not everyone and not everything at once. And that shows the restraint of God, because his desire is people come back. It's not to judge anyone. It's so people come back. And so I request of you, if you feel like you're not there, come back. Come to God. He is calling you to come back. Do not wait, because this is all coming like a thief in the night. What I'm going to meditate on is this idea of the martyrs' prayers, and by extension, our own prayers, rising up before God's throne. And I guess, ask yourself, do you actually believe that your prayers reach him? Do you treat your prayers sometimes like I do, like it's an act? People will, I have a gratitude journal. Well, who are you grateful to? No. We turn things into a practice instead of thinking about them actually doing what they say they're going to do. This chapter says it plainly. Prayers go to God. So what changes you about your prayers when you take that seriously? Then I pray myself, that God knows every whisper that we think goes unheard, every prayer that we think that no one was listening. And so I want to thank God, that in that silence, there's 30 minutes of it in this story, or even like in, seasons of my life, where maybe you feel God is absent. I talked to someone last week who felt God was quiet with him. And, I pray for all of that so that everybody knows God is not far off. He is preparing something. He is preparing you for something. And so give it patience in that waiting, the way that this chapter shows. Things happen within God's own timing. And what I want to share with others, if you have someone who has been praying a long time, who feels that their prayers are going unheard, I want them to know that in Revelation 8, 3-4, this picture that every prayer, including the unanswered ones, are rising up before God's throne right now. Everyone, thanks so much. Appreciate you listening to this. Silence is the most terrifying thing of all. And then these trumpets that are there. A third of the earth, the sea, the rivers, the oceans struck one right after another. The eagle overhead telling us that things are going to be much worse. But I tell you what, we read the back page of the book and we know how this ends. If Exodus echoes, through running throughout this entire thing, hail and fire and turning seas to blood and darkening skies, the parallels of this aren't that surprising now that we understand that everything is being brought back in Revelation. Everything that we saw throughout the Old and New Testament, and it's coming true right at this moment. I want to appreciate you for listening and being there with me. I look forward to you coming back. You can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. Please do not be scared by this. Read the back page of the book. You know what? This goes well. Thank you and have a great day.